Okay, so here we are in Google Sheets. I got here by going to sheets.google.com and then I logged in with a Google account. Now you'll notice right here, we have a list of all of our current spreadsheets here at the bottom. And then up here at the top, we could create either a blank spreadsheet or we could create a spreadsheet from one of the pre-made templates offered by Google. So you can see they have some useful templates in there, and you can take a look at those, and maybe once you learn a little bit how to use Google Sheets, then you could jump in and just use one of those templates. But I'm going to show you how to do a spreadsheet from a blank document, and we could just click blank right here, but I do want to show you that if you're using Google Drive, you can go to drive.google.com, and then from here you can click on the new dropdown at the top left, and you could create a Google Sheet from here. If you go to the little arrow, you could create either a blank spreadsheet or a spreadsheet from a template. So we'll just click on blank spreadsheet. Okay, so you'll notice that our spreadsheet opened up in a new tab. And one thing to note is that Google Sheets will automatically save as you make changes, which is great for data loss, but it also makes naming your spreadsheets extremely important because if you don't, you're going to have a bunch of untitled spreadsheets. So let's go ahead and click in the title up here at the top and give this spreadsheet a name. We'll just call it monthly budget. And I'll click enter. Okay, so from here, I just want to mention that you'll notice that you have a lot of your tools across the top here. We're going to be using this toolbar as we create a monthly budget here in Google Sheets. So you've got your formatting tools for your fonts. You've got your data types, so currency, percentages. You can increase and decrease the decimal places. You can choose more formats of numbers by clicking on this dropdown. And then you have some tools over here to manage your alignment. Your vertical align versus horizontal align, text wrapping, all of the sorts of tools that you would think you'd have access to, and we're going to take a look at a lot of them. So I'm just going to pull up this other spreadsheet on the screen real quick because this is what we're going to be working towards. Throughout this video, we're going to be creating this personal monthly budget, and in doing so, we're going to be using almost all of the features of Google Sheets. So it's a great example, and it's a real-world example that will kind of give you an idea of how you can actually use Sheets as well. So let's go ahead and let's get started. So to begin, I'm just going to start putting the bones of this spreadsheet together. So it's a personal monthly budget. So I'm just going to type the title up here at the top. And we're going to do a few things in terms of formatting this title, and we're going to merge it in another cell here in a minute. But let's just get, like I said, the bones in here. So I'm going to go through and we're going to create our personal monthly budget. So the first area that we have is our income. And we have two people in our family here. So we want a column for income, and we also want a column for amount, how much they're actually earning. So we have person 1 and person 2. And then we can actually put the amounts in, since that's not something that's going to change. We're not going to do a formula with that. However, we are going to change the data type. You'll notice that right now it's not currency. We're going to change that. But we also want a row here for total, and we're going to leave that blank for now because we're going to enter a function to calculate that total for us. So now let's go into the expenses. So we've got just a few expenses here. It's a pretty bare bones existence, but we're going to survive. We have a car, food, and a place to stay. So car payment, then we have some miscellaneous expenses and cell phone. And these are also, well, right now, at least fixed costs. We're going to talk about that, and we're going to create a pivot table based on fixed and variable costs here in a little bit. But for now, we can enter these amounts. So our rent I have as $2,000, food at $500, car payment $300, miscellaneous $500, and then the cell phone is at $100. We're also going to want a place for the total, and we're going to calculate that. So we're going to leave that blank for now. Now we have one more area here in this chart, and that is our total balance. So this is, are we making money or losing money? What is our total, net profit or loss for our personal expenses? So we just have our balance, and then we're going to have the total, and we're also going to calculate that. Okay, so we've put the bones of our spreadsheet together. These are essentially things that aren't going to change. We haven't done any calculations yet. However, we can now do our calculations on this. But before I do that, let's now talk about formatting our spreadsheet a little bit to make it look just a little bit more user-friendly. So first of all, you'll notice that the title is actually in one cell. It's overlapping into the second cell. However, it's only actually in this cell. And if we were to change the text wrapping to make it, let's see here. So it clips. You'll notice that it's getting clipped off there because it's only in one cell. So we want to put this in two cells. So I'm just going to click on this first cell, B2, and I'm going to click and drag over to C2 to select both of these cells. And then I'm going to click on this button up here, which is the Merge Cells button. So you'll notice that it merges into 2 cells. Now I'm going to align it to the center with the alignment option. And then we'll go ahead and maybe we'll make the text a little bit bigger. We can make it bold if we'd like. And you'll notice that it's now cut off in here. So in order to fix this, we would either need to make the text smaller again, or we can expand our columns here I'm just going up here to where there's the line, the border between the columns, and I'm just clicking and dragging that out. Okay, so that's an easy way. You can also expand the rows if you'd like as well. I'm just going to edit and undo that because I don't want to do that. So we've formatted our title. Now let's talk about formatting this area a little bit. So let's select this entire area, and we're going to give this somewhat of a blue background. We'll give it a very light blue background. And then in areas that are important, so the titles, we'll go up here again, here's this fill color. We'll make it a little darker blue. And for the total, we'll also make it darker blue. We can also make this first area bold by selecting both cells there. And the total we can make bold as well. Now we can do the same thing with the expense area. So we'll select all of it and we'll choose a very light colored red. And then we'll make the title and the total a little bit of a darker red. This really, it seems kind of silly. Okay, we're playing with our colors and background. This really makes consuming spreadsheets and your budgets and lists a lot easier. So this actually is helpful and it does look better, right? So let's also do the same here for balance. Let's go ahead and let's make this we'll just make this green. And we do need to make this part bold here, bold at the bottom, and we will make balance entirely bold. Okay, so we've got some of the bones of our spreadsheet together. However, I really don't like the fact that we're working in just a generic number and not currency. So we're going to change the data type. So in this first area, we're just going to select the 3 cells that are going to have currency. Then we're going to go up here to the top and click on the money symbol. And again, if you're looking for a different data type, you can click on this 1, 2, 3 for more formats. And I believe if you go up here to format, the menu, and then number, you have those options as well. But we're really mostly working in currency, so we can change all of these to currency as well. And then when these come in, these will be currency as well. Actually, it's only going to be this last cell. We want to do, I hit percentage currency. We want to merge this balance. We can merge it with the top 2 and then center it kind of what we did with the title up here. Okay, so we've now put our chart together. We've got currencies. It's time to do some functions and some math. So first of all, in the income area, we want the total amount of income. So here's your basic Google Sheets formula. And there's a few different ways to do this. I'm going to show you my first favorite way, my easiest way when you're doing something easy like a sum, and then I'll show you how you can do more complicated functions as well. So for this example, I'm just going to click in the cell where I want the total to go. I'm going to type equals, and then I'm going to type sum. Then I'm just going to type Shift and 9 to add an open parenthesis. And then I can go, and it's actually doing it for me because it kind of knows what I want to do, but we're going to pretend it doesn't. So what I would do is I would click and drag through the entire range that I want the sum of. So I just clicked and dragged for these 2, and then I just hit return or enter, and we have our total. Now we can do the same here for expenses. So we'll do equals sum, open parentheses, and again, it's doing it for us. We could just hit enter, but for habit's sake, we will click and drag our range and hit enter. So now we have our total expenses. We also have our total income. So now we can calculate our total balance. So I can click in this total balance field, hit equals, open bracket, and then now I have to do a little bit of a different formula. We're actually not going to do a range. So I'm just going to hit equals, and I'm going to select my total income, I'm going to type minus, and I'm going to select the total expenses and hit enter. And so there we have our total monthly balance, $6,600 in profit. We can save some money, right? That's great. But you can see how this works. So if we were to say increase our food expenses and hit enter, you'll notice that our total expenses changes and our total balance changes. So this is how we can put a basic spreadsheet together and do some formulas and functions. I do want to mention the other formulas. So if I was just doing equals and then sum, but let's say we wanted to do something else, instead of doing equals and sum, I could click in the cell where I want the formula to go. And then I could go up here into insert and choose function. And you'll notice that I have a list of all of the functions. You've got your basic ones at the top that you use a lot. So sum, average, count, maximum, minimum. And then you've got all of these other ones. And a lot of these I don't even know how to use, I'll be honest with you. But if you use Excel or another spreadsheet and you're looking for an advanced function, there's a very good chance you can find it here in Google Sheets. If there are certain functions you'd like to hear more about after watching this video, let me know and I'll try and get a tutorial up for you on that as well. Okay, so we've created a basic spreadsheet. Now let's talk about how we can do some sorting here in Google Sheets. So we have this list of expenses. And let's say we want to sort this group of expenses. So I just clicked and I dragged to select this entire group. I'm not selecting the headings. You could select the headings if you wanted to, but for this example, I'm not going to select the headings. And I'm going to show you how to sort this by both numerical value and alphabetically. So first of all, with this data set selected, we're going to go up here and we're going to go to the data dropdown. Now we don't want to sort the whole sheet. We want to sort this range. So we're going to go to sort range, and you'll notice by default we have two options. We can sort by column B, which if you take a look over here is this column right here. So that is the actual name. So if we were going to sort by column B, we would be sorting alphabetically. So we could do that. So let's just sort this range by column B from A to Z. So you can choose the order. So we should be in alphabetical order. So there you can see, we now have everything in alphabetical order. Now, alternatively, with this range selected, I could go back up here to data and I could do sort range. And this time I could go to advanced range sorting options. And now, instead of sorting by column B, I could sort by column C. If I had included a header, I could click on this data has header row, but I didn't. I didn't select the headers, right? I didn't select expense and amount. But we're going to sort by column C. And then when it comes to the order of sorting, when we talk about numerical value, you count from 1 to 24, whatever, right? So A is 1. So A is a lower value. So sorting A to Z, we're going to be sorting lowest to highest. You could also sort Z to A. So that's up to you. Let's go ahead and sort A to Z. You'll notice that our list of expenses changes its order here. So that's how we can easily sort a range here in Google Sheets. Now let's talk about a bit of a different way to do that. We can actually filter data here in Google Sheets as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to select this entire data set except for the total down here at the bottom, but I do have expense and amount selected. And now I'm going to go up to data and I'm going to click create filter. And you'll notice that when I do that, on these top two columns here, we now have these three little lines that have appeared on our spreadsheet. And I can click that, and you'll notice that now I can easily sort Z to A, I can sort A to Z, and it's going to keep flipping this around for me. I can sort, if they had certain colors, like the background color, I could sort by that. I could actually filter values though. So let's sort from A to Z in expense. Let's go to this amount column, and let's say we only want to see expenses that are expensive. So over $500. So I can click on this filter drop down. We're just going to go over here actually to filter by condition. And we're going to say that the condition is greater than 500. That's simple. And we click OK. And you'll notice that we now only see the expenses that are greater than 500. However, our total is still showing us the total of expenses, even the ones that aren't shown. If we want to clear this filter, we can click back on here, change this to none, and click OK, and our filter has now been removed. So that is how we can filter data here in Google Sheets. So if you just had one big spreadsheet with a bunch of columns up here, you could select, instead of just selecting, trying to select it all, because then you might have to scroll, you could just go up here to data and you can sort the sheet. So one example that I've used this for is wedding invitations. So when you're doing your wedding invitations, if you've done that, or I don't know, just a list of people that you have to send things to, right? It could be like a newsletter or something. You're usually going to have a person's name, then they're going to have address, maybe their contact info, right? So one way to do that is you start putting people in for your wedding list, and then at the end you can sort alphabetically so that you can check and say, hey, did I remember to add so-and-so? Instead of having to go through the whole list, you have it sorted alphabetically so you can easily find their spot on the list to see if they're on there. So that's how you can use entire sheet sorting here in Google Sheets. Okay, so we have now created our spreadsheet, we've done some functions, we've formatted it. Let's talk about all the fun stuff that we can do now. The first thing that we're going to do is create a chart to show our expenses. So to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select this data set. And again, I'm not going to select the total. I'm just going to select the column headers in the entire data set. And now I'm going to go up here to Insert, and I'm going to choose Chart. You'll notice that this chart kind of pops up, and it already has things broken down. So we can see that rent is making up 54.8% of our expenses, and then we can see where everything else falls. So we were able to create a simple chart. However, there are some things that we can customize about this chart. So when we created this chart, this little area over here on the right came up, and this is the chart editor where we can specify everything about our chart. So we could change the type of chart that we're using if we wanted to. This is obviously going to depend on what type of data you're looking at, but I can just kind of make it 3D. You can see that looks a little bit better. We can choose what we want our labels to show. So right now it's showing the text, but we could have it show the amount, so the actual expense amount if we wanted to. And there are a lot of things that you can go through here. I'm not going to show you everything. If we go up here to the top, we can click on Customize, and you have a number of different areas in here. So we can change the chart style, so we can give it a little bit of a background color if we'd like. We can change the border, all of these things. We can maximize it, which I kind of like. It kind of makes the chart a little bit bigger, but I'm not going to do that for now. Obviously, we're using a pie chart. We can customize the pie chart. Do we want a hole in the middle of it? We can add a donut hole, that sort of thing. For each pie slice, we can customize each particular slice. So maybe I don't want food to be yellow. I could make it green, and then I could change the distance from the center so that it's separated. If we were highlighting a particular piece of data, we would bring it out like that so that people, that's what they see when they look at it. So there are a lot of different options in here. Here you can change the title. So this is probably a good idea since it isn't a very intuitive title right now. We'll change it to expense breakdown. We could change, the font, the color, all that sort of thing. So just a lot of different options in here. And then you've got your legend options. So we could make the font, bigger on our legend if we're having trouble reading it, all of that sort of things. But we were able to easily create an expense breakdown chart from our personal monthly budget so that we can easily see where we're spending our money. And again, if things change, let's say rent goes up to $3,000, look at that. Our chart changes automatically. So this is such an easy way to create a chart here in Google Sheets. Just fill out a spreadsheet as you normally would, and then select your data set and insert a chart. Now let's talk about creating pivot tables. Pivot tables allow you to extract data from your spreadsheet and reorganize it in a different way. So let's take a look at why we would want to do that and an example of actually doing it. So to do that, I'm going to move this chart over a little bit, and I'm going to start making our spreadsheet not look that pretty, but it's really for example's sake, so I do apologize for that. In order to start with pivot tables, we need another piece of data that just really makes it worth creating a pivot table. So I'm going to add a column to our expenses here, and I'm going to call it just percentage of expenses. So we're basically going to show what we see here on the chart, but I want it in our spreadsheet. So as we can see, rent is 64.5% of our expenses. So to calculate what percentage each particular item is of our total expenses, we're just going to click in the cell where we want the percentage to go. I'm going to type equals, and then I'm going to click on the first cell, which is the one that is the actual expense. And then I'm going to click on divide, or type divide, and click on the total expenses, and then hit enter. And then obviously we get a decimal at first, so I'm going to click on the cell, and I'm going to change it to percentage format. So we can see that our car payment is 6.45% of our total expenses. Now I want to calculate that same percentage for all of these other expenses, but I want to do it more quickly. Now, if you're doing a formula that isn't reliant on a fixed number, so if I'm doing a formula between this cell and this cell to arrive at whatever this cell, doesn't matter, this plus this equals this, this plus this equals this, then I can just click on this first calculation and I can drag it to the bottom, and it will work. However, in this scenario, I'm using a fixed cell. So this doesn't work. So I'm going to hit undo. I need to go into this function, and I need to make it so that when I drag this formula down, this number, C15, remains the same. So in the original function, I'm going to go up here to the top to the function editor. And where I have C15, I'm going to put a $sign in front of C and a $sign in front of 15. This will make it so that is a fixed cell that we're going to do calculations on. So now when I hit enter, you can see Google already wants to autofill it for me, which I could, or to do it the old school way, I can say, no, I want to do it myself. I can click out. I'm going to click this first formula where we have the $signs, and now I'm going to drag it all the way down, not to the, well, I could drag it to the very end. We can still calculate 100%, right? You'll notice that now our percentages are correct. They should match up with what we see on our pie chart, and they do. So now we've done a couple of things here. First of all, we've learned how to do calculations on fixed cells, which is important. We've learned how to drag functions down, again, clicking on the first one and then getting that bottom corner. It's when you see this plus icon, and then you can click and drag it down. So now let's go ahead and let's add one more area of data, and that is for these expenses, I want to know what type of expense they are, and essentially I want to know, is it a variable or fixed expense? So in our list here, we have our car payment, which is fixed, so I'm going to put an F. We have our cell phone, which is fixed, that also gets an F. Food is variable, miscellaneous is variable, and rent is fixed. So we have 3 fixed expenses and 2 variable expenses. So I'm going to create a pivot table to show me the breakdown of how much we're spending on variable versus fixed expenses to just kind of view it a little bit easier and to show you how to make pivot tables. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this entire data set, not the total, just the headers and then all of the data. And now I'm going to go to Insert, and I'm going to choose Pivot Table. Now it asks me, do I want to insert it into a new sheet or into the existing sheet? If I choose New Sheet, it's going to create a second sheet down here at the bottom. As you might be familiar with in Excel, you'll notice that we have a plus icon down here at the bottom, so we can create sheets. I can click that, and it opens up a new sheet. I can click on the drop down. I have a bunch of options for managing it, or I can just delete it, because that was just an example. So we're in here, we have our data selected, and we're inserting the pivot table. So I like to insert it right into this sheet because it's not such a big spreadsheet that I just don't have room for it. So I'm going to choose existing sheet, and then instead of typing anything in this area, I'm just going to select this select data range option. I'm going to choose the cell that I want to start it in. So we'll say, what is this, B21? You'll notice that it inserts it automatically for me. So now I can just click on OK, and then click on Create. So now we've started a pivot table, and we can customize our pivot table over here on the right side of the screen. You'll notice that we're now in the pivot table editor. So one of the uses of pivot tables is to turn columns into rows and rows into columns. So we essentially have this column in our initial data, which is the type of expense, and I want to turn that into a row here in my pivot table. So in the pivot table editor, I'm going to go over to rows, and I'm going to click Add. And I'm going to choose the row type because I want it to be sorted by type of expense. So you'll notice that we now have a couple of rows appear, one for F for fixed and one for V for variable. Now we need to tell our pivot chart what to put in the column next to this. So we're going to go over here, and into rows, we're going to add a row for the actual expense. So what is the title of it? So we now have our type broken down by type, and then we've got our expenses. We need to add now a value. So we're not just bringing in, cell names and stuff. We're going to actually add a value. So we're going to click on values, and for this one, we want to find the value of amount because we have this area right here is what we're going to be looking at the value of. We want to see how much we're spending on fixed versus variable expenses. So when I add this value amount, you'll notice that we now have our data grouped by either a fixed expense or variable expense. And then over here, we can see the fixed expense total, which we didn't calculate. Notice up here, we did not create that calculation. We did it with the pivot table. So we have our total fixed expenses, and then we have our total variable expenses, and then we have our grand total. And if we were to change anything, let's say our cell phone bill, we were roaming, we were traveling internationally, boom, whoa, okay. Cell phone is now taking up 18% of our expenses. We can see that. We notice that, our fixed expenses have now gone way up. We still have a profit in terms of our monthly profit loss, personal profit loss, but it's gone down to $44.50. So you can see just by changing that one piece of data, we have now updated everything in our spreadsheet. So we've updated our chart, we've updated our pivot table, and of course, we've updated our calculations. So this should really give you a really good idea of how to get started here in Google Sheets. Again, a lot of the things that we've been doing are using this toolbar up here at the top. But you should definitely take a look through these menus up here. There are a lot of different options for like freezing rows, for grouping things together. Notice all of the different things you can insert. You can insert images if you'd like here into Sheets, drawings, links, even emojis, right? You can do comments. So if you're collaborating with others, I can add a comment and I can @mention somebody just like you would in a Google Doc. So they'll get notified that they need to respond to that comment. With formatting, you have a lot of the same stuff that you had here in the top bar. But it's just a little bit easier to see. You can easily add alternating colors to your spreadsheet. So for example, I could go into this area here, and click alternating colors, and you'll notice that it alternates it for me. Again, another easy way to consume data in a spreadsheet. In the tools section, there's just a few things in there. Data we looked at sorting, we looked at filtering, but notice that there are some other options in here as well. So a couple other things that I just want to leave you with is I mentioned that you can collaborate and share in Google Sheets. So if somebody else is working on a Google Sheet at the same time as you will actually see them in here making changes. But to share a sheet with somebody else, you're going to go up here to the top right corner and click on Share. And then you can go ahead and enter the email address that you'd like to share it with. Now, this will share the sheet as a Google Sheet, so they can open it up in Google, they can edit it if you give them edit permissions, all of that sort of thing. However, a lot of people end up sending Google Sheets as Excel documents because the people they're sending it to only use Excel. So let's take a look at how we can do that. If we go up to the File menu, you'll notice that there are a few things that we can do here. We can download it. So first of all, we can download it ourselves, and you'll notice all of the different options that we have. We can do Excel, Open Document, PDF, CSV, and TSV files. So, you could download it as Excel and then email it as an attachment. But you also have this email option. You can choose email this file, and in this little pop-up that you get, you can choose your file type. So you can choose OpenOffice, Excel, or PDF. If you just want to send it as a Google Sheet, you just share it with them. You don't have to use this email as a file. So you can send it as Excel, enter the email address, and there you go. You've now sent them an Excel spreadsheet that you made in Google Sheets, most likely for free if you're not paying for the upgraded version of Drive. So again, these are all the basic features and functions of Google Sheets. I hope that you're now comfortable coming in here, creating some lists, sorting things, using some of the functions, and maybe even creating a chart. If you found this video helpful, I would really appreciate a thumbs up here on YouTube. And if you want to see more technology tips and tutorials like this one, don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. That's all I have for you for today. This is Anson from AnsonAlex.com.